Good afternoon. Welcome back to Cool Your Heels with Lillian Caldwell. And today her special guest is Robert Shear. And he's written a book called A Forever Family, Foster Change, One Child at a Time. So good afternoon, Robert. How are you doing?
I'm great, Lillian. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I've got to tell you, I think it's important for people to understand about the foster care system.
I will agree with you. You know, we have 438,000 kids in the United States that are in our system. And it's a system, by the way, that I will not let anyone say to me is broken, because it's beyond broken. The system is shattered and we have to rebuild it. Some of the things that really get me is this new statistics that have come out where 54% of kids who are in our system will only graduate from high school. Only 11% of them will actually apply to college. And the Casey Foundation has come out with new studies that show that only 2% of these kids actually graduate with a 4-year degree. This is just not acceptable. You know, we're seeing over 80% of these kids are ending up in the penitentiary. So the only thing that we're doing is we're literally graduating these kids from the foster care system to our penitentiary. And, you know, I tell people all the time, this isn't my problem. This isn't your problem. This is our problem. And we have to do something.
Well, you would think that in such a wealthy country like the United States that treats foreign students with more sense and provide them with housing and be able to work and send money home, that we would do the same things for our kids who are in problem families or poverty families and give them just as good a chance as these foreign students.
You know, I agree with you, Lillian, on that. And the thing that really gets me is that, you know, I go around to the country and I talk to different states and I hear them say, you know, oh, we pay for their college. And I'm like, wait a minute, we have to stop for a second. Just because you're paying for someone's schooling doesn't mean that you're helping them with complete wraparound services. And here's a great example. Year before last, every year my husband and I give a scholarship to a recipient of someone who's aging out of the foster care system through our charity Comfort Cases. And we gave a scholarship to a young man 2 years ago by the name of Esperon. Esperon came over here through the genocide of the Congo. He was in a foster home for many years. He aged out, got accepted to the University of Rochester. And as you know, that is not an easy school to get accepted to.
No, that's a very accredited school.
Very hardworking young man. He gets accepted to this school. He goes to Rochester. He calls my husband and I up about a couple of weeks ago, and he says, you know, because he keeps in touch with us. That's one thing we ask all the kids to do is we want to know how you're doing. What's your grades? And Esperon called us and he said, Mr. Rob, he said, you know, I'm calling to let you know it did really well. And, you know, my quarter at school, and I was so proud of it. And I said, so Esperon, what are you doing for the holidays? And he says, I have to go to a shelter. And I said, what? And he said, the school that I live in closes for the winter break. And he says, and I'm aged out of the system, so I have nowhere to go. Well, first of all, after I picked my jaw up off the floor and tried to hold back the tears of knowing how hard this young man worked to get into the University of Rochester, I said to him, listen, Mr. Reese and I will have a train ticket for you and you will come home to our farm and live. So he actually arrives on the 21st of December and he will live with us until January 16th. And the reason I tell this story is because we do not think about these basics of schools closing. And all of a sudden, once you get in that shelter life, and let me tell you, from a kid who aged out of the system and was homeless, once you get into that shelter life, it's very hard to get out of. And so we have to stop saying, well, hey, we pay for school. We have to start saying, you know what? We're going to be here to support this child during their journey of getting a higher education.
It would seem to me that what we should do, there's certainly a lot of abandoned office buildings all over the place. Nobody's using them. And it seems to me that maybe we can renovate them so where kids can go especially the college kids, because the same thing happens to kids who are in high school or junior high or even in elementary school. The school closes down for 2 weeks. The foster parents want to be alone for the holidays with their, quote, real family, unquote. And that leaves these kids at risk because they really have no other place to go at all. So what happens? They either go back on the streets or they fall in with the wrong type of people who start teaching them how to survive the wrong way.
You're right. You're right. It's about choices in life. And a lot of times, we really need to make sure that we're giving them good choices to be able to make. I speak to kids who age out all the time, and, they don't want to be in a penitentiary. They don't want to be in that gang. They don't want to be in that shelter, but we have given them no other choice. See, the thing is that we all don't realize is that kids are in the system because of no choice of their own. They're in the system because of choices that other people made. Other people have neglected them. Other people have abused them. Other people have put them in harm's way to put them into the foster care system. And then we put them in this system, and then we don't help them to make even better choices. Small things. I had a young lady that I was speaking to who was aging out of the system, and she was getting her own apartment, and they pulled her credit, and her credit was crap. And the reason was because her biological family took her social security number and rented furniture and got cable and got electric and didn't pay the bills. And it went on this young lady's credit. And now she is 19 years old, has no support whatsoever, no family to call, no mom or dad to call to say, hey, can you help me pay off these debts and let's clear them up? Or can you help me show me how to clear it up? She has no idea. And we don't even think about that. It gives me chills, Lillian, to know the thousands and thousands of kids. I mean, you look at this year alone, 2018. We are going to have almost 30,000 children that are going to age out of the foster care system. The staggering number is that 70% of those 30,000 children are going to become homeless, That's just not acceptable. As you said, we're a rich country. We're a giving country, but we're not giving to our children in care.
I don't understand why these kids would, in exchange for maybe a place to stay and food during their breaks or during the time when they have to set up or even to pay off what their parents did to them, because she's not the first one who's had her identity stolen and used that way, is to set up a program where they can work somewhere, and in exchange it will pay for their food and for their lodging. Because I know that the United States has gotten very lazy, and they don't want their kids, and certainly they don't want to do what they consider menial type jobs. But I know there are a lot of jobs like that available. I've washed dishes. I've swept floors. I did a lot of things when I was a single parent to take care of my child to make up for what I didn't get as a secretary because I didn't have schooling and secretarial skills. And I know that there's still a lot of jobs like that left where if these kids can just pick up the slack, it's not like they're going to be doing it for the rest of their life, but at least they'll give them an opportunity to get the earth back underneath their feet.
I hear what you're saying, Lillian, and I will tell you that, as a father of 4 children who adopted my 4 kids out of care, I never want them to feel they're too proud to do a job, but I also want them to know that they have their fathers here who are going to make sure that we're supporting them as they get their higher education. I tell my kids all the time, they have one job. They have one job, and that's to get an education.
Exactly.
That is to get an education, because for me, I didn't have that opportunity. Okay. I went from a shattered system to a senior in high school to living on the streets my entire senior year of high school. Literally lived on the streets. I went to school every day. I would hide my trash bag that, and I lived on the streets. I also had a job. I worked my $3.35 an hour job at the taco place, but that wasn't enough money to pay for a room anywhere. I was a kid. What I'm saying is that we have to invest in these children. And more than just saying, you know what, you need to go sweep those floors, we need to be there for them mentally, physically, and compassionately, to know that they matter.
And they do matter. And that's what gets me very upset about people who condemn abortion or any kind of pill or something to prevent giving birth, is that they want all these kids to be born, which is wonderful, but they're not around after the kids are born. They don't feed them. They don't clothe them. They don't take care of them. They don't counsel them. They don't love them. And I suspect that the United States feels that because it has a system in place, they can sweep these kids out of everybody's sight. So nobody has to really worry about them. And in their mind's eye, they're taking care of them. I mean, I think it'd even be a good idea if land could be purchased with a home on it and these kids can be in there.
Yeah.
Where volunteers are coming in to help them. I know that they're trying to encourage multi-generational living. I think that would be ideal.
I agree. But let me tell you what's happening. The problem is that these are the disposable kids. Yeah. These are the kids who are bad. By the way, there's no such thing as a bad kid. It's only a kid that needs to be redirected. Okay. But we have in our mind, we say the F word, and we immediately think that these are bad kids. And that is not true. And what really gets me is, and I've said this to social workers, I've said this to people who oversee child and family services in different states, we must do two things. One, we must financially set these children up for success. How we do that is that if you're able to give a monthly stipend to a foster parent, which, by the way, it's not a bad pay. I can tell you right now, there are some states where one child comes into your home, every single month you get a check for $963. No questions asked.
Wow, that's more money than I made.
A lot of money. Not only do they get that check, they get health insurance, they get dental, they get daycare paid. If the child is under the age of 5, they get WIC. So they get all of these other perks. Why can we not take a portion of that money and putting in an interest-bearing account for these kids? I'm not saying giving it to them when they turn 18. I know what an 18-year-old kid is like, but we start preparing them for financial success. Maybe giving them a little bit to pay for their first month's rent, but we start that at the moment they walk into the system. The second thing that we must do is that we must give them complete wraparound services until they're 26. That means you need to be working. You need to be getting an education. You can't be just laying on the couch watching YouTube. You have to be doing. Be a doer. And if you do that, I'm going to be there for you till you're 26 years old. Because by that time, you know what? It's time to get up off that couch. But I do believe that if we give those two things to kids who enter our system, we will see a huge difference in our numbers. And when I say our numbers, I'm talking about our prison population. I'm talking about our juvenile detention centers. I'm talking about the death within children of kids who enter care. Right now, 4,600 kids in the United States are missing. 4,600 kids in care are missing. Have you heard anybody talk about that?
No, and you won't, because to them it's very embarrassing to admit. It's bad enough that they're missing children that they're taking from the Latinos who are coming across the border. They can't even reunite them with their own children because they don't know where they are.
Yeah, let me tell you, if one of my kids were missing, I would be buying banners. I would have my kids on a milk carton. These are our children. And they're missing. And we say they're runaways. First of all, foster care is a gateway to human trafficking. It is a gateway to human trafficking. Why? Because we have been making money on the backs of kids in this system for way too many years. And it is time for us as people of our community. And by the way, doesn't matter what your zip code is, whoever's listening to this, we are all part of the same community. And that community is the community of the human race. And these children are ours. And it's just no different than if someone took my child. These are 4,600 kids who are missing, and we need to find them. We need to talk about them. Every single day I get an opportunity to talk about foster care, I talk about it. Every single day I wake up and think, who can I talk to today to let them know that we have to change this? One day, I hope I'm going to talk to the right person who's going to say, you know what, Rob, I feel your passion. I feel your empathy, and let's do it. Let's do it. Instead, the only thing I keep hearing is, well, you know, we've tried to put that Band-Aid on that. No, peel the onion back. Let's talk about it. We don't have the right foster parents. We have allowed foster parents to come into our system that should never have been licensed. We don't look for the right home because we're too busy looking for beds. You know, group homes should be outlawed. We should not allow group homes. These kids need families. And by the way, if you want to sit here and talk about how you don't want to support them and you don't want to do this, then step up to the plate. Step up to the plate and allow one of these kids to come and live in your home. And I'm telling you, gosh, you become the richest person in the world. I know I did when my 4 children arrived. I'm the richest guy in the world for them.
But that's because you have a different mentality. You have a different set of what I would call compassion, where a lot of people just don't have it. They don't want to be bothered. They're afraid of the system. They've seen way too many movies misaligning, misrepresenting what a foster parent does or can do, because in the movies they're trying to get everybody to cry and feel good. And then when the good thing happens, everybody stands up and cheers, but nobody does that in real life.
Yeah.
When my son was in high school, we had a child come over from another country where he happened to be picked on by his father. And we had no idea of that, but we welcomed him in our home for 3 months and we did the best we could. And he had a blast. And he said, you told me I couldn't have sex in your house. He says, my parents wouldn't even have the nerve to say that to me. And I said, oh, I have the nerve. Let my son tell you about that one.
Oh, that's so great. I love that. I love that. You know, kids need structure. Kids need guidance. Kids need discipline, you know. And last night I went to the premiere of the movie Instant Family with Mark Wahlberg, and I was worried about going to this movie because of a kid who grew up in the system, who adopted 4 kids out of the system, who's very outspoken about the system. Now all of a sudden there's a movie out about kids that are in foster care, and it's actually, you know, it's supposed to be a comedy. And so I walked into this premiere thinking, oh, this is just not going to set well. I've got to tell you, Lillian, I loved it. It was true to form. Like it, I was so impressed with it.
Now you have to build on its momentum.
Yes.
Now you have to contact the people who put it out, who were involved in the movie, and see if we can start a movement with it.
I agree. I was absolutely humbled to meet the writer and the director last night. And, you know, him and his wife adopted 3 children out of care. And, you know, he wrote this movie to get people to do exactly what you and I are doing today. Talk about it. Talk about it. Because I truly do believe that if you talk about things, the movement will start. The movement will start. I said this yesterday in a speech. We are all pebbles, every single one of us. If we take that pebble and throw it in the water all together, the wave that it will cause will be a wave that everyone must notice. And that's what I think we need to do for foster care.
I think that the opportunity has presented to yourself. Now all you need to do is to keep on talking about it and trying to initiate some kind of action with it.
Yes.
Provide a plan to the listeners, giving them a step-by-step directions of what they need to do next and how they can fix it. This is something that citizens can do. They don't require the government's permission to do this. Because if you wait for the government, you'll be dead and buried.
You're right about that. And you are right. The fact is that's the reason that Reese and I started our charity called Comfort Cases, is because we felt like we needed to do something and we just didn't know what. And so we started talking about the fact of our kids arriving in our home carrying a trash bag, and how I carried a trash bag and how demoralizing that is for a child to carry a trash bag. And so we decided that we were going to put some cases together to give to kids when they enter the system for their very first night. We truly believe that every child deserves to have their own brand new pair of pajamas with a tag on it. Every child gets a toothbrush. Every child gets their own shampoo, their own lotion, their own conditioner, their own bar of soap. The basic things that you and I, if we weren't, knew anything about the system, we would think that these kids get this already. That is not true. That is not true. My children, we were their third home. Their third home. My daughter didn't even have a toothbrush, and she'd been in 2 other foster homes. You tell me why. Why? So we wanted to make sure that that didn't happen. And we give each child a book, we give each child a blanket and an activity. And when we started this, we thought, we're just going to, help our local neighborhood kids that are in foster care. We'll do a couple hundred cases a year and really help make a difference there. Well, I will tell you, this was 5 years ago, which it lit a fire in me that I knew was there, but I'm telling you, the fire has grown. And we've now done 42,000 cases, 42,000 cases to 40 states, including DC. We have been giving these cases out. And Lillian, the thing that is so shocking, we have no corporate sponsors. No corporate sponsors. Every single case that we give out is because people like you, people like your listeners, people like our neighbors, they step up and say, we want change. We don't want these kids carrying trash bags. What can we do? Well, first of all, you go to comfortcases.org. You figure out how you can help us in your area, because there's foster care. There's kids in foster care everywhere in the United States. So we need to know where these kids are and how we can connect our cases to them. And then what you do is you start helping us. Send us some books, send us some shampoo, send us some bars of soap, maybe the extra $10 you have a month that you donated to our charity. We're a 95% ran charity. You don't find those any longer. But nowadays, the overhead of charities is ridiculous.
Well, it's all administrative work.
Oh, and you go to our charity, we're 95% volunteer, 95%. As you said at the beginning, we wrote a book. We wrote a book called A Forever Family, fostering change one child at a time. And it talks about, my journey as a kid in the system, becoming a homeless teenager, dealing with my own demons of depression and drug addiction. And then, adopting 4 children and out of the system and really trying to be a leader to my kids. But I wrote this book because I want my kids to look back and say, you know what? My dad was a doer. He was a doer. And that's what we all should be, as doers.
The another thing that you may want to consider, it's the holidays. So manipulate the holidays. Have people dress up as Santa Claus and then ask people to put something together to give to foster care kids, because they won't get that kind of stuff. And, they don't have to give a present to the kids that are coming out of the system at 18 or 19. They can write a check for them to be able to have some money to start learning what they can do with it. I mean, start planning it the way you see the Toys for Tot programs, the way you see them gathering stuff to send over to troops overseas. Do it the way cerebral palsy and some of the other legendary charity programs are set up.
Yep. Yep.
and
No, it's
and
how
get these
we've
people
grown.
involved, because this is the kind of thing that's begging to be part of the system, even though it's not part of the system.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you. You know, I say it all the time. We're changing the system one case at a time, one case at a time. And we're going to continue to keep growing. And you know what? I'm not always going to say the things that people want me to say. I'm not going to sit here
I don't do that.
yeah, I don't either. I'm not going to sit here and say that all foster parents are great, because they're not. And I'm not going to sit here and say that all children in care are bad, because they are not. But what I will say is that we can come together as a collective group and make a difference. Make a difference. We have some amazing foster parents in the system. They really are in it because they want children to have the best. And I'm so grateful for them. But we've got to stop thinking about them and start clearing out the ones that shouldn't be there. You know, stop. We've got to stop. We give to these foster parents, but they're not giving to the kid. I want them to give to the kids.
Well, I think one way to do that is to almost have them fill out an application or get interviewed.
Lillian, they do. They do. Let me tell you.
They still have these problems.
Lillian, let me tell you how bad this is. So, first of all, to become a foster parent, you go to the orientation class. You go through it's normally about an 8-week course. Okay. You have to have social workers in your home to be certified. You have to have lead paint testing done. They do criminal background checks on you. They really put you under a microscope. The problem is that we do not have enough foster homes. So the social workers turn the cheek. And when, I said this one day to a social worker, I said, every child that you have caseload for, are they in a home that you would allow your dog to stay in? And she looked me straight in the eye and said, no. I said, why? She said, because we don't have enough beds. We don't have enough beds. So even though, Mr. and Mrs. Jones have, a large enough bedroom, or they don't have a criminal background, doesn't mean that child should be in their home. It just doesn't. I've talked to kids who have aged out of the system where their food has been locked up and they couldn't get to it. They were a key. I've talked to kids in the system whose foster parents just dropped them off at respite so they could take their bio kids on vacation. I've talked to foster kids who, literally have got nothing. So all of these parents were approved. They were approved through our system to be foster parents. Once again, we don't have enough good ones who step up to the plate. So because of that, we let everybody in, and that's wrong. It's wrong. Lillian, I hope that, in my lifetime, that I truly do see change when it comes to this system, that I truly do see more than just people, giving a case, that, we start to see the numbers change. That's what statistics are there in our face. We know that as of right now, 2 out of 3 kids in care are going to be dead or in jail. We know that 70% of all girls who enter the system will be pregnant by the time they're 18. And that's not because they're bad. It's because we haven't taught them to love themselves. We already know that we have an increase in our foster care system. Right now, the last number is 438,000, but I guarantee you that we have over 500,000 children in our system right now, because we have not had a decent count in years. It's time for all of our states to come under one umbrella. We all need to do it the same exact way. We need to have some type of hub for these kids to go to where they can find the resources to make them good humans, because that's what they want to be. We've got to do that. And if my last breath, I'm going to make sure that this happens. I'm going to make sure that kids in care know that, you know what? They have somebody who is going to fight for them. And I don't care whether your listeners are blue. I don't care if they're red. I don't care how they vote. What I care about is that they step up to the plate and do what's right. And what is right is to make sure kids in care have a voice. They're not disposable, they're not invisible, and they matter.
Okay. Robert, tell everybody where they can find your book, A Forever Family, Foster Change, One Child at a Time, where they can find you and your website, and anything else you want to share with the audience.
Well, Lillian, first of all, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely enjoyable. You're an amazing woman. And anybody can visit our website, comfortcases.org. That's comfortcases.org. Our book is being distributed through Simon & Schuster and Jeter Publishing. So you can buy it at all your local bookstores, Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, target.com. Again, you can go to comfortcases.org and there's a link there. Every time you buy this book, it's helping a kid get, a comfort case. So it's so important. I will tell you that I'm so pleased with how this book turned out. And I hope, Lillian, you get to read it and give me your viewpoints on it. And I hope this isn't the last time we talk. And again,
no, probably not. There are a couple more questions I have, but we do need to wrap it up for this time.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving.
Well, thank you. And before we go away and stray, Voltaire had this to say in 1740, if the first law of friendship is that it has to be cultivated, the second law is to be indulgent when the first law has been neglected. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed Robert Scheer and his talk about the foster care system when a child phases out of the system and what happens to him. A Forever Family, Foster Change, One Child at a Time. You can see this all over again on youtube.com/PWR Network LLC, facebook.com/Passionate World Radio and PWR Network LLC. https://passionateworldradionetwork.com, on amfm247.com, on the Roku TV on Tuesday evenings from 8 to 9 p.m., and a host of other places. I really hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, we're changing our programming to really hit home things that are taboo or forbidden topics no one wants to discuss them, and provide an action plan for those who want to leave a worldwide ripple. Thank you all very much for listening. And remember, please keep listening. Thank you.